INFJs are the rarest Myers-Briggs personality types out there and are known for being super empathetic and receptive to other people's emotions. While a person of any personality type can involuntarily become attached to their wounds, wearing their past pain like armor against criticism, a receptive INFJ can absorb too many negative emotions. An advocate tends to bottle up their feelings and emotional trauma in a way that makes them feel safe, but prevents them from growing into their best self. Here are some signs that INFJ women may exhibit if they've been dealing with emotional trauma. Number 8. They may be oversensitive and self-absorbed. INFJs who are engulfed with emotional trauma may have a hard time not taking everything personally. They're likely to view all forms of criticism as personal attacks and don't refrain from creating a me versus the world scenario in their mind. At the same time, they may become paranoid about what others are thinking about them and misinterpret body language or harmless comments into signs that others hate them. This tends to happen to those INFJs who haven't had a lot of positive affirmations in their life. Number 7. They don't like asking for help. There is no doubt that INFJ women are innately independent and love helping everyone around them to attain their goals. However, if she has some unresolved emotional trauma, she will refrain from asking for help, big or small. For an INFJ, asking for help is akin to rewarding the other person, especially if they trust the person. It restores their belief that those around them also have empathy. However, for those with significant emotional baggage wearing down on them, asking for help is a big deal. Even simple things like asking a coworker for guidance on a project or asking a friend for directions to their home may seem like too much. These feelings may be rooted in a past event where someone else took credit for their hard work or felt vulnerable. The hesitancy to ask for help could be a sign of unhealed emotional trauma in INFJ women. While the main reason for this distrust is the fear of being judged or discriminated against, another contributing factor is a looming sense of doubt that no one other than themselves understands. Most INFJ women who have unhealed trauma tend to feel helpless and posit that they are unsolvable cases, simply because they don't completely understand themselves either. Number 6. Fearing failure or success. It may be inconceivable to think that a person may fear both success and failure, but for an INFJ woman who's dealing with emotional trauma, it is a harsh reality. While fearing failure before starting something new is nothing out of the ordinary for any personality type, going to the extent of talking themselves out of a new experiences is different. According to psychologists, when a person goes to the extent of avoiding failure at the cost of their own ambitions, it is a surefire sign of unhealed emotional trauma. This type of trauma usually results in missing out on opportunities, careers, or relationships since they have an underlying fear of failure. In INFJs, the fear of failure can hamper creativity, increase self-doubt, and create the impression that they're not capable of making decisions on their own. On the other hand, some INFJs may have a fear of success too. For INFJs, the fear of success stems from feeling like they don't deserve anything good. They also have a fear of losing things they already have, so they fear any unattained success even before they actually attain it. They try to suppress their emotional wounds with the label of not being interested in big successes and may pretend to put forth a facade of being humble. However, all of this is just a front to the unworthiness they're feeling deep inside and can sabotage their chances of any true success down the line. Number 5. They're resistant to change. A resistance to change is a common personality trait for an INFJ, and so it doesn't always mean that they have unhealed emotional trauma. However, when the mere idea of change, even if it's positive, becomes debilitating to think about, then there might be a bigger problem. INFJ women who have emotional trauma will not only be resistant to change like other INFJs, but will be extremely, implausibly suspicious of positive changes as well. Anytime there's a possibility of something good coming into their lives, they may be filled with a wave of shame and guilt. They subconsciously tend to steer clear of feelings of celebration and happiness simply because they feel that they don't deserve it. As an INFJ, they might be able to put on a facade of happy emotions to satisfy those around them, but in reality, they tend to panic deep down. When dealing with emotional trauma, INFJ women may feel that a positive change will pull them out of their comfort zone of feeling mediocre. This aspect of unresolved emotional trauma can be particularly challenging in romantic relationships and platonic friendships, since the lack of acceptance or appreciation for good things and kink gestures can make it impossible to make them happy, feel worthy, and safe. Number 4. Micromanagement. It's a common line of thought in psychology. The need for constant control stems from a feeling of lack of control in life. For an INFJ woman, Irrespective of whether the emotional trauma occurred recently or in their childhood, a need for control is likely rooted in past instances of helplessness and vulnerability. As a result, an advocate may put up a wall to protect themselves and try to control as much as possible to avoid feeling helpless at all costs. Since this personality type is already prone to perfectionism and organization, they inherently believe that micromanaging everything will minimize the chances of anything going wrong. Unhealed emotional trauma not only causes an INFJ woman to worry about the consequences if they're not in control of a situation, but it also creates a feeling of dread for the safety of their loved ones. Overprotecting and suggesting alternatives to the decisions of their loved ones may feel like a safety net to them, but those being challenged on their choices may not really appreciate it. Number 3, they become reclusive. INFJs are not opposed to shutting everything out. In fact, since they have an introverted nature as their name suggests, they do need a significant amount of time to unwind in solitude. However, in the case of INFJ women who have unresolved emotional trauma, their hermit mode may extend to shutting loved ones out completely and avoiding social situations at all costs. This usually happens when a trigger reminds them of their past emotional trauma. Depending on the severity of the traumatic experience and the consistency of their flow of thoughts, an INFJ woman may fall into the grip of a spiral of emotional turmoil that is defined by uncontrollable emotions. In this situation, they may be so consumed by their trauma that they may find it exhausting or even impossible to navigate through the bare essentials. The pain can even radiate to those around them, creating an emotional roller coaster. On the other side of the spectrum, those experiencing a grip stress reaction may become focused on indulgent sensory experiences like binge-watching shows, eating junk food obsessively, or impulsive behaviors like organizing everything in their sight, including their possessions. Number 2, they don't listen to others' perspectives. INFJs who have unhealed emotional trauma are super attached to their subjective viewpoint and may become quite stubborn about their opinions. Instead of opting for a friendly debate where the perspectives of both sides can be heard respectfully, they tend to state only their opinion and leave. This gives the other person no opportunity to state their case and make themselves heard. While an INFJ is usually perceptive and receptive to various perspectives, this tends to happen when emotional trauma unleashes the auxiliary, extroverted feeling in INFJs. The unresolved emotional trauma suppresses their dominant or tertiary functions, that is, intuition and thinking respectively, and doesn't allow these functions to develop in positive ways. A healthy INFJ, on the other hand, would love to hear everyone's side of the story and empathize with diverse viewpoints. Number 1, lack of self-confidence. Insecurities and a lack of self-confidence are normal human tendencies. However, when an INFJ woman experiences an incurable lack of self-confidence, it is a result of either burnout or unhealed trauma, or oftentimes it can be a melting pot of both. Advocates are generally harder on themselves as compared to the other 15 Myers-Briggs personality types, but past emotional traumas that have just been swept under the rug and not dealt with can heighten their subpar sense of self-assurance. A deep sense of uncertainty is common in intuitive personality types who have experienced emotional trauma in their childhood or in those who have been in abusive relationships. In fact, it can be any incident where an INFJ questioned their self-worth at a crucial point in their life. For a person to feel genuinely confident, they need to have a good idea of who they are both inside and out. INFJs unfortunately tend to absorb the emotions of those around them, and sometimes they may find it difficult to know who they actually are, since they're so used to putting their emotions on autopilot in consideration of others. Do you have an INFJ personality? How do you cope with emotional trauma? Comment below. As always, like and share this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates on psychology.